Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Enlightening Your Way. I'm your host, Nancy Lombardo. We are airing live on the official Lilydale Assembly Facebook page and YouTube channel. I am a leaseholder here in Lilydale and the president of the Church Living Spirit, which is an independent spiritualist church on the grounds here in Lilydale. I'm a military veteran and retired police detective and fitness and yoga instructor, and wellness is my passion. This show is a combination of my many life experiences that will feature various topics and guests to help enrich one's mind, body, and soul on your pathway to healthy living. My website, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, and my motto is protecting and serving your well-being. And I'm so happy to introduce our guest for tonight, Logan Sutt, and we're going to be talking about the greatest gift of all, organ donation. Logan is a spiritualist minister, medical intuitive, and spiritual healer. He is an advocate for Donate Life New York State, which includes organ, eye, and tissue transplants. Logan is also a member of the Finger Lakes Donor Family Network, where he holds the position of tissue and eye donor liaison. Logan is an Army veteran and has held certifications with the Association of Surgical Technologies and the American Association of Tissue Banks. This led him to be part of the organ procurement teams and participated on teams that transplanted hearts and kidneys. While in tissue banking, he had the privilege to talk to donor families to get consent for donation and obtain the tissue. Logan himself is also a very grateful tissue recipient, and in 2023, he became a donor family member where his nephew became an organ, eye, and tissue donor. That's a lot. I don't know. I was reading all that and I was listening to everything and I was like, where do I start with this conversation? Right, Logan? Because it's just a lot. So I thought the best place to start would be to ask you. So you were telling me before we went on air live that that you only have the stats for New York State, not for national stats.
Correct.
Okay. So my question was, how many people right now die waiting for organ transplants?
Well, we do have 100,000 people in the United States, I will say that, waiting for transplant, and 13 people die a day.
In New York or nationwide?
That's in the United States. As far as here in New York, we have 7,917 people waiting on the transplant list and 109 New Yorkers waiting 5+ years.
Wow. 5+ years. Can you imagine waiting for that phone call?
No, I really can't.
I mean, that's crazy. What do you think the number one reason people choose not to donate is?
Well, I think it's education. Here in New York State, I can just say in the past 30 years being in tissue banking and being an advocate, we really had a problem with getting the word out. I can't even express to you how upset a DMV worker was when they used to have to ask if you wanted to be an organ, eye, or tissue donor. So in the transplant community, I'll say, everyone started working with DMV so that's the first point of contact that people would even hear about that.
Department of Motor Vehicles?
Yes. Oh, excuse me. Yes. Department of Motor Vehicles. I'm sorry.
That is.
Right. Right. And here in New York State, we've even gone a couple steps further. When you get your ID card now, you can sign it that you want to be a donor. Voter registration, you can sign up that you want to be a donor. If you enroll in New York State, the official health plan here in New York State, you have a place to be a donor, and you can even download a paper, a copy, and write what kind of donor you want to be, because you do have choices on what you want to give as far as donation goes.
That's on your driver's license?
Yes. Well, on your driver's license, you're signed up for organs and tissue. But if you there's a little like a threefold little placard that I have. You fold that up, you check off what you want and what you don't want. I've had people say to me, I want to donate everything, but I don't want anything to go to research.
Yeah, I get
I've had
that.
that is, one of my questions that I've had over the years.
But in all honesty, as far as I can remember, first when I first got my license, that little donor thing's been there a long time. So I remember joining the Army, check marking that on my license. So it's been around a long time. Maybe people just weren't aware about it, I think, or didn't think about it as they should have been.
Well, I mean, like, we really have done a lot, I would say, in the past 30, especially with DMV. In the state of New York, we have a really good DMV. They're well trained because, even I've had nurses when I've gone into the hospital. I used to run something called the surgical bone program when I was in tissue, and even going into hospitals and talking to people or educating people, even in the ICU, there are nurses or people that don't feel pro donation, and that's okay. There's no right or wrong answer to that. You have to go with what your convictions are, which that's fine.
Oh, 100%. I totally agree with you on that. I'm wondering, when you were on the organ procurement team, was that anywhere in your radar when you were a surgical technician, that you wanted to do this part of it?
Well, as far as vascular is my thing, that over the years. Open hearts are my thing. You got a lot going on all at one time. But being in general surgery is where you put the kidney in. And then, just being in a general room, if that's your room that you're assigned to that day, or you're doing a kidney transplant. As far as a heart goes, we had 3 rooms at our hospital. So what we would do, we brought the donor in, we'd procure the heart, and then a lot of times we go right to the next room and take the diseased heart out of the recipient and put the new one in. And as you know, a heart is always beautiful.
Oh,
That's the best beautiful art organ I've ever seen. So, my thoughts on that.
I love that. I love that. What did you learn being on part of such a specialized team?
Um, hmm. I thought about this a lot. Um, you know, being a spiritualist now and thinking about some things that I've learned over time, and just I guess self-reflection. When you do the last thing you take out is a heart, and there's a cross clamp time. And that cross clamp time, usually you have the heartbeat going, you have the ventilator going. And when you do that cross clamp time, yeah, you have, the line goes flat. And, it's almost like, I said thank you then, and I say thank you now. Even when I did tissue donors, I would always look at each one's face as I did the exam. You have to document anything that's on the body on a sheet. And I always would say thank you to even my but my tissue donors. And that's how I felt about organ donation. And I got really up close and personal when I had to sit there with my nephew. I mean, I don't know. That made it a whole different story, Nancy.
We'll talk about that in just a little bit.
Yep.
So was it hard to keep emotions out of doing these kind of procedures?
No, it wasn't hard, because you knew it was going into someone who really needed it, and they would have a better quality of life than they had before. And that just makes the whole thing sweet, just knowing that.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, for sure. So I know you said in your bio that you've talked to families and you had to talk to them. How do you even begin this kind of conversation with families about consent to donate when they are in this heightened state of grief?
Well, they've been prepared, that they knew that the organ, tissue, or eye bank was going to call, and they were pretty much ready for that. Um, as you're going through a consent, when you're talking to a donor family member, you just ask the questions and you just let them slowly answer and slowly go along with, sort of like the temperature of the situation. And, it depends on death, Nancy. I mean, you've been in death being a police officer. There's, it's just different different scenarios give you different emotions.
Because it doesn't necessarily always have to be that they check mark that they want to be a donor. This conversation could take place even without that little check mark, correct?
Oh, yeah. Because you have to do a medical, social, sexual history, and that's pretty personal.
Yeah.
One of the things here in New York State that Governor Hochul just did was she signed something called the Friend Act. Let me make sure I get this right for you. Hold on a second, Nancy. So a close friend donation is very important because a lot of times it used to be, unless you are legal next to kin, you cannot sign that form. You cannot talk to anyone about their, medical, sexual, social history. But with this, which in the bio, I told you that I help New York State or Donate Life New York State. One of the things that we do is we go to Albany and we advocate and basically educate, the lawmakers on exactly why this is good or why this is bad. And it's not all about money all the time. For example, this. So if you have, say, for instance, that I die and you know what, my mother Shirley knows my medical history. She would be able to get a medical history and be able to sign for that because she's a friend and she knows what I've been doing. I brought up the example when we were down in Albany this past year that, if you get a tattoo, you are 3 months deferred in blood.
Mm-hmm.
So we would know if you got a tattoo. So it's just some certain things that would be, Shirley may know more than my sister would know if she gave a medical history,
Mm-hmm.
So that's why that was so important, that Governor Hochul signed that act.
So it just came into place then, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a couple things came into place this past year. But I'll leave it there since you're the one question, right?
What is we were talking about you having these conversations with these families. What do you find the first reactions to be?
Well, I have a couple. I had a family member that, the mother wanted to donate, and I said, okay, I told her who I was and, why I'm calling. And she's like, yep, I want to donate. I want, everything that you can use. But her mother was in the background and she was having a lot of anxiety. And as the temperature of me talking to the mother, I could hear the grandmother just not in the mood for donation, just did not want that to happen. So as the conversation went on, I tried to listen to her, and the grandmother just was not non-consolable. So I said to the lady, I'm like, I said, here's my number and here's my name. And, if your family can come to a better place with this, because the last thing I want to do is for, her grandmother to be upset and she may live the rest of her life like that. If you decide as a family that this is something you want to do, please call me back.
Yeah, that's the best way to handle it, huh?
Yeah.
I think I wanted to have this conversation. People are probably wondering, why are you talking about this in Lilydale? And because as spiritualists, and we say this all the time, we lose people, and you always miss the physical presence of that person. Even though we know we're spirit, we're soul, we're not our bodies. This is just a shell of us, and we go in. That communication isn't with this body; it's with the soul of the person, right? And so there's some really beautiful things I think we could do with this donation of these organs and tissues to help other people, don't you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's just so many. I mean, I don't know how many people heard me talk back in May, but I'm a tissue recipient, like you said at the beginning. And do you want me to wait for that?
What? I forgot what tissue you had.
An ACL.
That's right.
Bone, tendon, bone, ACL.
Okay.
So I had my graft 25 plus years ago, or it's at least been 25 years. And that graft makes me able to walk and not fall down. I don't have like a medial instability. So my niece one night, she sent me this text. You got to come. You got to be on the phone. We're going to FaceTime here at 7:00 on Tuesday night. So I'm like, all right, Jacqueline, what could be the thing to that? So I was on FaceTime and everybody's sitting around, like my sister-in-law, Jacqueline, her fiance, my brother, everyone's there. And she said, I just want to read this letter to you. So we got a letter from Jonathan's donor, one letter, and that one letter was about an ACL that my nephew got from him. She got from my nephew. I was like, you got to be kidding me, really? And everybody was smiling, and they're like, I cannot believe that, we couldn't tell you before this because you would have been so happy. So yeah, I don't even know. It was definitely divine, Nancy. I mean, out of every single tissue that Jonathan could have donated, to include organs, the first and only letter we get is the same piece of tissue I got. That is amazing to me. It still makes me happy.
That's a divine sign, is what that is. The divine. Is that common? Are donors allowed to get the information of who these? Can you send letters? Can you know who it is that donated? Do you have that kind of? Are they allowed to have that kind of connection with each other?
I would say yes. In some cases, it's going to be dependent on the OPO, which is the Organ Procurement Agency. I would say that as far as us being able to write a letter, send it to the Organ Procurement Organization, then they could forward it on. There are some families that do not want to give that information out. I had a family member who was a kidney recipient. He went on dialysis, and dialysis is arduous. I mean, that's 3 times a week. It is hard on a person. So before I left, he lived in Texas. I said, before I left, I said to him and his wife, I'm like, all right, you know what? Let's just manifest that. You need a kidney. Let's put it out to the universe and ask for a kidney. So he got a kidney. I said, some transplant surgeon will do a kidney for you. It was a prisoner. And the prisoner gave Ralph the organ, and he lived another couple of years. But the family of the prisoner wanted nothing to do with asking, knowing, or anything about the recipient.
Huh. Were you just talking before we went live about how many people are actually waiting just for kidneys alone?
Here in New York State?
Yeah.
In New York State, it's 7,000.
Just in New York State?
In New York State. Excuse me. There's 7,917 people, and 7,000 of those are kidneys.
That is unreal. Unreal to me. Wow, it's a big number.
So can I tell you one thing though, as far as like we were talking about registration. So we have 8,296,718 people that have signed up on the donor registry for Donate Life New York State. Our current population.
That's a good number.
Yeah. Our current population is 19,867,248. So, I mean, we're getting there. And over the years, especially since I've been involved with Donate Life New York State, I'm always looking to see, all right, we got to up that number. And, my thing, if I get an opportunity to talk about tissue, because Nancy, no one knows about tissue.
Right. You're right. Right. Yeah. And they are two different things, correct?
Yes. Organs, life-saving, eyes, 2 corneas. You can see, restoration of eyesight. And as far as tissue goes, that's heart valves, skin, bone, connective tissue, like I got for my knee, and Jonathan gave Dell for her knee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot that you can donate, isn't there? We were talking about the conversation that you have with the families of the donor family. Have you ever had the opportunity to be the person that tells the recipient that they're getting this organ? Or tissue, or have you ever been on that end of it?
No, that would be, and that's a good point that you bring up. A lot of people in my travels say, you know what, I don't want to give. I just did a donate life thing a couple weeks back, and I had this young man that said, you know what, I don't want to donate because they won't save me. And I told him, I'm like, well, first of all, the last thing you ever want to do is have a patient die. But let me give you the real skinny of it. And I said, you know, doctors, nurses, no one has information that you're an organ donor, organ eye or tissue donor till after death. And that's UNOS keeps that information, and the OPO has that information. So they would only be the ones to know that, because hospitals call with deaths. With every death, they call the agency.
Every death.
Every death.
I didn't realize that. So, is there a particular story that you could share, not one of your own, that has really touched you?
Really touched me. Can you dial that in a bit? I have a lot of touches, but I'm not sure.
I was talking about through this work, before you went through all these personal journeys of your own work, talking with families. Is there something that was said, just something that touched you more than others?
You know, I'll have to think about that. I definitely didn't ask. I didn't.
I didn't think of that question, did you?
Well, you know what? Let me say this. I am a member of the Finger Lakes Donor Family Network.
Yes.
And I've learned a lot about grace with them. You know, they all tell their stories. And then a couple times a year, we have something called, you know, coffee, where people that are newly donor families, and, you know, to sit there and to be able to help someone that's suffering and someone to not know what they're going through, you know, that touches me every time. That gives me chills every time, to think that I can just sit there with all the other mothers, because it's usually, you know, mothers always show up. I tell you that all the time. Mothers come and they sit there with that donor family, the donor family at that point that are new. And it's so rewarding just to sit there and say, you know what, I got your back, because I know what you're going through. I did that walk, you know, I was good to go, Nancy. You know, I'm, you know, in tissue, I'm good to go. I'm a recipient. And then there was Jonathan, and that changed my whole life right there. So instead of being,
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, instead of being angry, instead of being, I'm not talking about my graph anymore, I'm not talking about tissue, I'm removing my plates, I'm getting rid of my email address. That those mothers, those people helped me to see that, all right, you know what, everybody else goes through this, and they helped me get through my first year, and now I'm on to my second year, because they warned me about some things. And you know what, to hear their stories and to help new people, new donor families, is that gets me every time.
Well, that really segues into my next question that I had, because it was 2023 that you were on the end and became a donor family with your nephew. What emotions did you go through being on that end of it?
I got to sit there, you know, I got to sit there with my my family, and I thought about all of the people that I had talked to, or has talked to me about their journey. And I just sat there, and it was surreal, you know. It wasn't really about it wasn't about the recipients. It wasn't about what they were going to do to my nephew, because, you know, my sister always said, you know, you got trapped on the other side of the wall. It was totally different, you know, to sit there. They had to place his organs. You know, we had a go time. I was sitting in the lobby, and, you know, I saw the transplant surgeons come in with their coolers. There's no getting around that, Nancy. That's visceral. And And then, to walk him down that hall where there's people shoulder to shoulder, it's touching. It touches a part in myself that probably never been touched before. I think I'm still thinking about that.
Yeah, sounds like you are for sure. And that walk, for people that might not know the traditional honor walk, do you by any chance know how it came to be?
I don't, because I never thought I'd be in that situation, truthfully.
Do you know
Seriously.
how long they've been doing it?
No.
Can you explain to people what it is, our listeners?
Okay. In the hospital overhead, they announce it. And if people are free in the hospital to come for respect, healthcare workers, many scrubs, many nurse uniforms, and the whole entire, when they stand shoulder to shoulder, there was not a vacant spot from his room down that hall. I thought I knew what it was. I really did. I a couple times I've watched them, on YouTube, just to say, am I really thinking that? I thought that would be self-help for you. When a mother is laying in the bed with her 8-year-old or 6-year-old or whatever and going down there's no way of getting around that, Nancy. There just isn't, So I don't know when that started. That was in tissue, remember?
I think it's a beautiful thing, though. It's beautiful.
Is.
It's honorable. It's respectful. And it's giving thanks and gratefulness. And I just think it's an absolute beautiful practice that they do for the donor, for sure. So you've really taken a complete full circle of this whole process, have you not? What does it mean to you now to be an advocate for Donate Life New York?
Honorable. It's an honor to do that. It's an honor to sit with we have pods of people in March that go around down in Albany, and every time I'm always put in another group or in a group who I haven't been with before. So I meet recipients, liver, heart, I don't think I've met a lung recipient yet, but we did. That was another that's another thing that is really a cool thing, because it's called the heart. Hold on one second, because I have this right here, Nancy. It's called Helping Equal Access to Registrations for Transplants, and it's called the Heart Act. And that got passed this year because what I learned from a heart recipient, actually I had 2 heart recipients in the group, and you're only allowed to, say for instance that you live in Buffalo. If you live in Buffalo, then you can only apply to Buffalo one heart needing a transplant. You can't go to New York City. There's a couple transplant centers down there. Not every medical center does transplants. So if you live in Western New York, I would say that you could beat Rochester in 3 hours if you had an available organ there and you met the criteria. So, I listened to those heart recipients, and they were really, really they educated me a ton about that. I had no idea.
I can't imagine how grateful they are to be able to sit and talk to you.
Yeah, and then they have the Heart Act passed. I was really, really happy, because everything we advocated for, we got this year. And that was really cool to be part of a team, to go in. Sometimes I feel like I'm the technical part, because, we need clean tissue, and I have to explain what that means. And, so I guess so.
So I know you go around and you set up booths for education and hand out pamphlets for people. And what do you find to be one of your biggest questions that people come at you with?
I'm too old. You wouldn't want my tissue anyway.
That's probably sure. And what do you say to that? Is there an age limit?
You know what? A newborn to 90-year-olds, that span has donated.
Wow, really?
Really? Yeah, because even when a lot of people, I'm going to get about this much technical, can I?
Just that much.
That much. When you have let's say you have an older donor and you need dental powder, so you can, crush that bone up and use it as a matrix so the bones can grow over. You need cells. You can't just, your tooth or your bone can't grow over a space that you don't have. So you pack that bone in, and even with hips and all kinds of different things, you need bone for that matrix to heal the bone. How's that for that far?
That was perfect. I even
right.
understood that. So you did good. You did
All
good.
Right.
Yeah, I could see that comment coming at you pretty good.
I'm too old. I had this lady that was a survivor 3 times of cancer that came to my table. And I said, I'm so happy that you're, a cancer survival. And then she goes, well, how did you get in this business? I'm like, well, it's technical. But I said, my last big thing that happened as far as organ, eye, and tissue was my nephew. And she shook my hand, she held my hand and said, you know what? I got chills. Thank you so much for sharing that story with me.
Oh,
she goes, that made my whole day. So,
I love that.
That's what people say all the time. And I will say that no matter what your medical history is, just sign up to be a donor, because like regulations, it's a very highly regulated environment, but over time and space, things change. Rules change. Certainly we get different medications. One of the things that while I was doing my research, because I did do some research just to make sure that I had you squared away, but, with immunosuppressant drugs now, how you used to hear you absolutely have to have, a match here and a match here, the donor has to match. Yes. Well, with immunosuppressant drugs being, advanced, not necessarily is that the case anymore.
So that's good news.
Yeah.
So I know we talked about the number of how many people are waiting for transplants or tissue or organs. Can you tell me how many are become recipients this year in New York?
No.
You don't know that number?
I don't know that number.
I bet it's a good number.
It probably is a good number, but remember, we're working with statistics, and that will probably come out till next year.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. Well, I thought it'd be a good positive thing to say.
Well, you know what? I knew about this, but I sort of went into this, which is something that you probably wouldn't have reference for, but that's placenta donation.
Huh. Yeah.
So placenta donation is really interesting because the cord, the umbilical cord, that can be used in your tissue and is stronger than the tissue you get from a graft, I've been told. The tensile strength of that. So that's really cool. I've also read about the amniotic sac being used on faces, and it will helps decrease scarring. So that's like really cool,
That's very interesting too. Yeah. I've heard of that stuff for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes like 6 to 12 months for that to heal. And you could use it in spinal cord surgery too.
Wow. That's impressive.
And it can be, I should tell you one thing, it could be a C-section or vaginal birth. So as long as and that's a special consent that you're asked at time of delivery, if that's something that you want to do. Other than that, it's discarded.
So why not use it? Yeah, valid.
Yeah.
So how has being a spiritual minister and healer helped you and others in this process that you are involved in now?
Listening. Listening and patience. And no matter what your religion is, if you sit there and you just sit with someone and offer hope, that's only a 4-letter word, but it goes a long way when you may not have anything else to say. Just sit there and just be patient, listen to them, and have hope.
Or sometimes just sitting in the quiet, probably.
Yep.
And being of comfort in the quiet, for sure. So you wrote I didn't put this in when I read it, but you said you're going to the transplant games in Denver, Colorado, which I've never even heard of. Tell me about what is it?
Well, It's where organ recipients and donor families go every 2 years, and there's many things that you can be athletes in. I mean, there are people with hearts that are runners. Let me just put in that you have to have medical approval. You have to sign your medical waiver form. This is the first time I've ever been there.
Do you know how big it is? How many people go to that?
I have no idea. This will be my first time, and I'll be able to come back and give you the skinny on that one. But
well, I've been to police and fire games. So I was wondering if it's similar, but that's so cool that they all get together and do things that they probably couldn't have done before.
Yeah, well, like there's trivia and cornhole, and you know what? There is one cool thing though. Our leader, her name's Michelle, and Michelle said that there's like if you have a family, because this is emotional. So if you have a family that is emotional, that they have a room just to be emotional in, and that's really kind to sit there with someone, or one of the stories I got that has to be emotional. I just haven't gotten there yet. But the athletes get medals, and they're the recipients, and the recipients, when they put the medal on, the the family puts the medals on. Usually the athletes give the medal back to the family.
Oh,
that's really that. I mean, that's emotional, Nancy. I don't know how to say that any different than that, other than that's grace for sure.
So are you going to be participating, or are you just attending?
Oh yeah, my sister and I are playing cornhole, and we're going to win. That's about as much exercise as we could do.
That's good. Cornhole. Yeah, that should be good. So is there anything else you think we should know about in talking about having this conversation tonight that I haven't maybe thought to bring up?
No, I'm just glad that you had it. And if anybody wants to, talk about donation, I'd be more than happy to talk about it. And I can't think of anything.
Well, I do have one final question for you. What is the most important lesson you have learned on your spiritual journey through this process of organ donation?
Respect. Respect for the recipient. Respect for a donor family. I had way before then, but it even became more. It's more focused now about respect. Now that I've gone and I've done that walk, you know what? That's a respect thing. Respect for every single person I've ever talked to in this lifetime, for their donation, whether it was talking to them about their loved one or talking, being recipient. Even my brother, it wasn't, Jonathan was my nephew, my brother and my sister-in-law and my niece, just to respect that space. Even though I know I'm a family member, but they're the mother, the father, and my niece. So I would say that I probably have a more concentrated focus on, or I'm more focused on what that respect means.
So would you indeed agree that this is the greatest gift you could give someone, or is there another one I don't know about?
No. A donor family member is the highest honor you can have, to help someone else live, to help another donor family, and like tissue, I like tissue does so many things. It can help up to 75 people, one tissue donor. Wow. One organ donor can help 8 people, and needless to say, cornea, 2 corneas can help too.
And I said, I can't even imagine, when I lost my mom, my dad, this wasn't a conversation that I know took place. They were, and I don't think their organs were healthy enough to have been donated. However, in saying that, I do wish people would consider if they're ever faced in this situation, because like you said, it could change so many lives, and it really could help so many people live so much healthier, longer life than maybe not expected. and in this time of year, at Christmas time, and in this time of giving, I think I'm glad we've had this conversation. I'm hoping people have it in the back of their minds and keep it, somewhere where if it ever comes to light, that you consider it.
Well, I just like to end, I guess, with my nephew donated lungs, kidneys, liver. His heart wasn't, in a place to do that. And he was a full donor. Corneas, tissue, as with me, my tissue I will never forget that story, Nancy. That's the best.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so very much, Logan. You've been very informative. Appreciate you opening up about what your own experiences. Thank you all for joining us this evening for this conversation. I will be back again in a couple weeks with another episode of Enlightening Your Way. Please stay tuned here on this Facebook page for everything that's going on in Lilydale on and off season. Website lilydaleassembly.org, and my Facebook page, Wellness with Nancy Lombardo, and my Instagram, nancy.k.lombardo, where my motto is protecting and serving your well-being. Thank you again, Logan, for being here this evening. My name is Nancy Lombardo, and I wish all of you a good evening. Thank you so very much.